Welcome to the Family Office Sherpa podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Parkin, founder and managing director of Whole Road Investments. The aim of this podcast is to provide practical and implementable advice for those looking to build, manage, or service a family office. This is not, however, investment advice, so please check the disclaimer in the show notes. In this episode, I'll be going through family members as employees of the office.
This is the Family Office Sherpa.
There was a really good article in the June UBS Quarterly, and I'll put this in the show notes for anyone interested. It was from Joshua Gentine. Joshua, I hope I got your surname correct there. And then what it delved into was the topic of what he called family office participation. And what was noted in this article was the need for a plan, especially when they start becoming involved in the operations, the investments, the philanthropy, things like that. So I thought it was a good topic. I've had a lot of conversations recently around this topic. I've joined family offices that have significant family office employees or impact by people that are actually principals. So I thought it was a good topic and a topic that can be sensitive, but I think it's something that we could embrace. And, what this whole podcast episode is around is looking at the risks, looking at the challenges and things like that, but B, some plans for getting people involved, because I think that's a really important thing. And like I said, I've seen this go incredibly well, creating super engaged and upskilled or increased productivity for family members. But I've also seen this go slightly awry, or sometimes very awry, which created, there was conflict. And what ended up happening sometimes was that the office ended up fracturing in terms of, well, we're going to go this way and we're going to go that way. So that's not necessarily if that's what you want, that's great. But, if that's not what you want, there is some plans of attack here. So it should be noted, though, that the whole purpose of family office or single family office is to service the family. And in my opinion, having them participate on any level that they're comfortable with is a worthy objective and purpose. So you do often see that in the purpose document, which is to create education, to get people participating from, more than one generation, all those sorts of things. So I think that should be noted as well. And what else triggered this was, there was a couple of announcement recently, the family office that manages the Chanel brand has recently moved to an internal hire. So I think it was the nephew that's been brought on, and I'll include that article in the show notes. And Ray Dalio, very famous hedge fund investor, has decided to take on the management of his family office. So it's happening. It's a thematic. So I thought it was worthwhile. And look, family offices tend to be lean in number, and often the family is the first ones to be. Employee one often is the people that made the money, and they're trusted to run the office. And often there's no plan. It starts with, well, this is our new office, we're running this, and then we'll work it out as we go along. So I thought it was good to go through some things to plan for. And then what I'll do is I'll finish with some pointers on getting family members involved. So planning, what I would be planning for. And when I say that, I'm like, what are the component pieces that we should be cognizant of and, thinking about? Number one, the optics. The optics of having family employees for other executives, for other family members. Why do they get to do this? Why are they getting paid to do this? It's not necessarily a major challenge if you are clear and you are upfront around things. It also affects things like those who are dealing with the family office or relying on the family office to be effective. They want to know that the people that are running it and are employed by it are there on their own credibility and their own skill set. Number two, pay and key performance indicators. Are they at market rates? Again, it's the family office, so there's no requirement to be under some award or some sort of market rate or anything like that. But I think it's important to be within some element of, well, this is the appropriate rate that we should be paying them because that's what the market rate would be. And also, if we swap someone out that wasn't a family member, would it be paid on the same rate? And other performance metrics, both reasonable and monitored. And what happens if they're not met? Who can and should have that conversation? I think these are things that, should be planned for. Number 3, credibility and skill set. Do we have them? Can they be taught? And is there an interest in learning these skills? I think a lot of us have heard around sort of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is this cognitive bias that occurs when those without sort of this domain expertise overestimate their competence or overestimate their ability to do something. But I think if anything, there's an element of well, if someone is engaged and ready to make these decisions, then it should be encouraged. And with guidance and education, I think they can get up to that. But I think even if they don't have the credibility and skill set at the beginning, there has to be an element of, like I said at the beginning, can it be taught? And is there an interest in learning? I think that's number 1, number 2. Okay, so number 4, have a conversation about risk before it happens. What could potentially go awry here? No one wants to lose money for the family. That can make some uncomfortable conversations. And if there's mistakes or there's loss of money or there's friction or something like that, and the only thing that caused it was a lack of oversight or a lack of planning for training and education, then I think that's probably the hardest pill to swallow. And so talk about it. Talk about these sorts of things because your future generations for sure will thank you for having that conversation. Next one, work ethic and resilience. What happens when things get hard and don't go your way for the family member starting? How do they play out and how can they be managed? So work ethic and resilience is something that, again, is sometimes hard to gauge, hard to teach and hard to maintain. So I think having some element of, if this doesn't go well, what's our exit plan if there needs to be one, or how do we encourage them and support them in a way that will circumvent this or remove this potential blockage. Next one, like I said, upskilling and education opportunities. Make sure they're going out there. Even if upskilling is really good, and you can get that by meeting other people and learning about how other officers and investment managers and wealth managers and things like that operate. And education opportunities are exactly that. Like there are certifications, there are, continuous study. We don't want to make it some do make it a requirement to have a certain level of education. And sometimes that's a really good test or, requirement. We'd love you to join the office as this, but you need to have at least this level of skill set or education, like certified education. So maybe there's something to think about as well. Next one is surrounding them with experts. The old learning through osmosis. I know when I was first starting, and this is, something that, working from home, you sometimes struggle with, which is being surrounded by people with career capital or those that have got significant experience in this domain that you can just learn from by listening to the way they talk about things, the way that they look at things, the way that they seek out or curious or, all these kinds of things. And, there's an element of sometimes people are just better teachers and by that same better learners as well by seeing or doing things. I know I am. University was not like I didn't shoot the lights out there, that's for sure. But I did love, as soon as I started work, I was like, oh, well, this is for me, because I did pick things up quickly when I saw how people did them. And, there's that sort of EQ, IQ thing, but I don't know about that. But all it is, I find a lot of the time, is that if people see something being done well, they know what good looks like. Next one, governance. My favorite. Governance should be tight around the things that are like on a legal and contractual basis, tight around employment contracts, tight around things like what is the purpose? What's the, there's got to be a job description. There's got to be something for us to lean on and say, this is what the role is. And also for the staff members to sort of go, well, I know what so the family member that comes in and says, I know what my role is. It's here. It's written down. It's good to have that documentation in place from a governance point of view and I think that's something that should be done right at the beginning every time. The other one, next one is don't make it busy work. Don't treat them like an intern. Not to say that that's how you treat interns, but you know what I mean. Don't make it sort of there's a whole lot of filing to do. There's a whole lot of busy work because someone's told me that this person has to be here or this person has shown a bit of interest. That's just a good way of removing any engagement and removing any interest from someone. It's like, oh, well, this is not fun. Make it fun. Keep it meaningful. Make it impactful. All these sorts of things. And I think that's true for everybody, to be honest, though. Okay, next one. Other staff need to feel as equal as possible. What we don't want here is protected employees. We want people, unless it's all family, but you know what I mean? If you've got executives in the office, you've got to make sure that they are not continually seen as less important, or there is an element of this employee can't be, we're not holding them to the same level of expectations and stuff like that. So you just got to create a good environment, because people aren't going to want to work in an office like that where there's, a couple of people that are just going to not pull their weight or are not seen as being part of the group or something like that. I mean, it rarely happens, this part, because ultimately everyone's kind of on the same level and are trying to do the same thing. But I think it's just important to sort of make it clear to the people coming in from the family is that you are going to be an employee and you are going to be treated the same, hopefully. And the last one, have the conversation on the implications of today's actions for future family members. If you can think of it, it's like a portal through time. What we do today and what our family members do today and our staff do today, how that impacts, if we could look through, or they could look back and next, generations 3 or 4 or 5 down the track and sort of go, well, the actions that we do today are going to affect them. And they look back at us and say, the actions you do today affect us. Because money lost or wasted here will affect the future sustainability of the office. And sustainability was, I was talking to a family office the other day, and that's the piece that they talked about. Is it a sustainable office? Is that the mindset we're going in with? And I think that was very cool. I like that. So I would say that if you keep a North Star in terms of the way that you're bringing family members in, you're trying to create something sustainable and long living. Okay, how to get them started. What I find, these are just tips, just to get people started in the office. If you're seeing a lot of family members that you think we would love to bring them in tighter, bring them in closer to the office and get them working and get them engaged. So first one, shadowing senior executives or their advisors. I've seen some family offices, put their kids into the advice business, and that's worked incredibly well, because not only do they see the benefits of good advice and the benefits of those sorts of things, they've also seen what other offices are challenged by. And again, you kind of part of a larger group. You are definitely not a protected species in those environments, hopefully, and you do get to learn how to run investment management or an office type of an operation, right? That's always a great idea. Next one. Get them to take responsibility for like a lower risk but still important and discrete, so really separate kind of portfolio or operation within the office. We do see a lot of families use the philanthropic element of the office or the initiatives within that super great engagement tool. It gets them to meet people, all these sorts of things. There is an element of, especially on the philanthropic side, what the gift recipient process and the due diligence there looks like. That's always very interesting and requires, there is recourse for that. So I think that's a really good one. So taking responsibility for some of those more discrete, low risk projects. Next one, being part of the presentation or summaries for investment committees. I work on investment committees. There's not often a lot of formal presentations here, but if there is an idea that they've got or something like that, then bringing it to the investment committee, which is a governance structure, not an investment management structure, I think is actually a really, really good idea. Or even just to build out the investment committee documents or the pack for the IC or the board or something like that, that gives a really clear sort of view of the office that can be incredibly impactful. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this is the level of activity that we have. These are the assets that we have. These are the people. These are the advisors. Sometimes it's a real eye opener. And I think it's a really good way to engage people and get them started. The next one I would say is and this tends to be more around the sort of larger offices or offices where there's really specific business units, is to get them to do what we used to call like a rotation, across these areas of the office. You can go into investments, governance, like, things around the board and the directors and stuff like that, reporting, administration, to find natural interests and strengths. I think just, all right, this is what we're doing. But and I got to say this really clearly, because when I was a junior, this is the sort of thing that would happen. Don't just sit them behind someone and say, sit with them for the day, because that is not a great idea. No one learns anything. And the person trying to do their work's got someone sitting behind them. No, this is family office, right? Get them to dig into it. There's nothing wrong with them having a real dig into the detail here, and get them to do projects around that. Like, there's always something. Right. So give them a task that really is going to be helpful for them to do it. Because I think, like I've said before, I find work enjoyable if I feel like I'm making a difference and that there is some version of a positive feedback loop. Right. And I think that's the same with any family member that's coming in. It's like, did a good job, helped us out. Awesome. That creates increased engagement all the time. And the last one I would say is, and this, I love this bit, which is getting them to assist with technology and systems implementation, because they just naturally, like, especially on the younger side, they're naturally aligned to that because they're very digitally fluent, and they can dig around, they can find stuff, and they can talk to other officers around the technology. And that's a really, really good thing to do, because A, it helps the office because there's not a lot of time for a lot of other people to do this kind of work. And B, sometimes, I find it very interesting, but maybe that's just me. So that's my tips there. So it's just a final thought. Like, family participation in the office should not be left to chance. Like the article mentions, have a plan. And then the article is really good because it does have some points to plan. So maybe that's a good idea. Put out a checklist. You got to have clear expectations, structure, like I said, ongoing education. It's a real powerful force, right? And increases purpose and like we're looking for here, which is long-term sustainability. I think if I see it at its best, involving family members creates what we want, right? That sense of ownership. It builds credibility of the office as well, and strengthens what we're really tasked with here, which is that intergenerational trust. But what it can see, if you don't plan this, you don't think about it, you get the risk of inefficiencies, you get tension and conflict, and you potentially get eroded confidence in the office, which is what we don't want. So that's it. That's the challenge and the opportunity. Find the balance, welcome enthusiasm and energy. Grab hold of people that are even showing a slight interest here, because it's so important. But you got to really embed that governance and accountability, and that's all we can really try for. So if you're interested in understanding how I work with clients to avoid or fix these issues, then please feel free to email me, Shaun, so SHAUN @wholeroad.com.au, or message me on LinkedIn. I'm always around on that. If you're enjoying the podcast, please ding the little bell. It's right at the top. You get the next notification. Please visit the Sherpa website, which is where all good things Family Office Sherpa is held at www.thefamilyofficesherpa.com. That's the podcast, newsletter, guides, and videos. Till next time, thanks for listening.